We all know as a practice owner, one of the last things you want to think about is tax planning and strategizing for your practice. In addition, the long list of tasks on your radar, it's really hard to do everything. You have to find a trustworthy team of experts that understands the unique and specific needs within veterinary medicine. My suggestion would be my friends at Granite Peak Associates. Granite Peak is an advanced tax planning and veterinary practice advisory firm who has spent many years working within vet med. Their team works year-round to make sure you're able to maximize your profitability while also minimizing your liabilities. Whether you're in the process of purchasing a practice, looking to grow your practice, or transitioning towards the sale of your practice, they are the experts to help guide you through. What makes them different than other firms is their devotion to proactive tax planning. By thinking into the future and creating long-lasting relationships with their clients, Granite Peak can help minimize the amount of taxes paid over the course of many years to come. Head over to their website, granitepeakcpa.com, to receive a personalized comparison of your practice financials against over 140 other hospitals that they've worked with. You'll be able to see how your practice ranks, where you stack up, and where the opportunities are to get better. From there, you can schedule a one-on-one call with one of the members of their team to review and analyze your results. The opportunity speaks for itself. You need someone on your side. Granite Peak Associates is that team. Take advantage of their innovative expertise within the veterinary industry. Discover the nation's fastest growing practice management software. Who, you might ask? It's my friends at Jhraid Veterinary Software. Founded by a practicing veterinarian, Jharid is easy to learn and works the way you work. Jharid automatically updates the medical records, adds services to the invoice, generates discard instructions, and so much more. It's time to bring home more stories and less stress. Learn more today at www.jharid.vet. Recruiting team members in your veterinary practice has never been this hard. You can either bury your head in the sand and hope it goes away or adapt. Enter Guardian Vets. By leveraging best-in-class technology, you can empower your staff and reduce their workload. Help reduce burnout. You also provide a better experience for your clients and patients, which you want to do as you serve them. The solutions Guardian Vets offers includes after-hours triage, virtual CSRs, that know your team and processes, telemedicine, and so much more. Become the employer of choice in your area by offering the best tools to position your team for success. Whether you're starting a de novo, clinic, multi-doctor, or multi-location, Guardian Vets can help you be more efficient and effective. Go to their website, guardianvets.com, click the Get Started button, then let them know that I sent you, right? Let them know the Vet Success Podcast sent you. Get 50% off your first month. Don't let another quarter or year happen before you start making changes, because you know you need to. So talk to the Guardian Vets team today and implement a new solution. All right. So we're back and super excited today to finally, and I'll say finally because I've been asking Jharid for a long time, like, hey, when are you going to come on the podcast? Hey, I want to interview you. But I have Jhraid Pratt, who's the CEO of Granite Peak. And Granite Peak is a veterinary specific advisory tax planning firm, and they're there to basically help maximize your practice profitability. For those that listen to those important, ad reads that I do, Granite Peak's been a sponsor of the show. I think very highly of Jharid and the team. They work with well over 150 practices over the country, and me, I love a niche, and they've carved out a really, really great niche in the world of veterinary medicine, and I think that makes a world of difference. So Jharid, thanks for joining me, and be excited to get into it today.
Likewise. Thanks for the many asks, like you said, and finally happy that our schedules aligned and linked up. So happy to be here.
Yeah, I know when I ask in the early part of the year, it's like, well, wait till after April. Then it's like, well, we're still getting some things finished up. Then it's like we were just talking about, and then you want to take time away, like spend time with your family, recharge. And it's like, well, now it's the extensions and all of that. So we're trying to figure out the right time to do this, and I do think it is a great time for I think all veterinarians to kind of sit back because they've gotten all their tax stuff. They, whether they had extensions, and they'll be able to say like, what went well, or what were my questions? Do I feel like I have the right team? And yeah, I would encourage them, and I'll say this again at the end, if there are questions, like reach out to you and your team, and I think they can do a great job at assessing the situation. And I know if it's the right spot, you'd be like, hey, I think you're in good hands. Things are going well. But if there's a change, hey, maybe it's the right time to make it. From that standpoint, I am actually wanting to start with something that's probably fairly basic, but for those that don't know you, right, you go from, I want to, go to school, I want to be a CPA, I want to be an accountant, I'm interested in this tax stuff, to then coming into, leading a veterinary specific firm. What's that journey been like? How did you kind of arrive at this was the destination? And has it been the grand master plan, or did it just like evolve over time?
I always say, I mean, anytime you get into business ownership, right? It's a roller coaster. It's ups and downs, lefts and rights, and very rarely is a straight line that you anticipate early on. So I think the pathway's been no different. Um, when I first came in and bought into the firm, at that point it was a generalist. We had a concentration in vet med, working with about 20, 30 clinics, but certainly not veterinary exclusive. And I think, like anything, as you dive into an industry and you start to unpeel and unpack the value add that you can bring to the table, what's needed, what's required, I just gravitated toward that. So we have, most times, if you think of an animal hospital, you get a pass-through entity, the practice. You got, most times they own the real estate they operate out of, and then you get the family. So it's the ability for myself and my team to really hit three major buckets, and do some really impactful work. So it just got, like anything, do a good job, it kind of snowballs from there, one at the other. And like you said, it was at 150, just a couple months ago, that we now just crossed 175 clinics and growing. So just the opportunity to do good work in the profession.
Yeah, I was like, I know 150 is on the website, and I was like, it's probably plus now just from our conversations based on what I'm hearing. So that's incredible, and congrats. 200's right around the corner.
Right there.
And so be there soon. What has been, you think about those three different buckets, working with the owner, and then you have the real estate piece and the personal side. What's been questions or area of interest that maybe has come up more so this past year, or in those conversations that people have asked that you guys have continued to address, or you feel like, hey, this has been an area that people maybe have seen a lot of value from what you've brought to the table, chatting with them?
Yeah, I think a couple things to answer that. First off, is we've seen a lot of activity in the real estate space, whether we got startups purchasing the clinic and the related real estate, or doing some renovation projects. So depreciation, how you depreciate the structure, and abilities to accelerate that depreciation. A lot of conversations around that, and truthfully often missed. So it's kind of that low hanging fruit, and clearly, I think right now, where we're deep into what we call our planning season, everything is strategy, tax planning, kind of taking that proactive approach. We have tax reform very likely around the corner here. So what we know today is going to look so different, 3, 6 months from now. I think it's just taking that big picture approach and really looking out to say, okay, let's take action on today's tax law, embrace for potentially what's to come here.
Well, and I had a question that I wanted to ask on that, and I think there are going to be big changes, right? You got a big shift. You have kind of the red wave, and whether that ticks people off, they like it, whatever, they can laugh, smile, curse at me as I'm talking through this. But love him, hate him, Trump's team and policies are going to be pro U.S. business. And one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, and it's the Tax Cuts and Job Act, which was in 2017, so TJCA. And for some folks that maybe don't know that, we can maybe give a high level overview, but it's supposed to sunset, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's been so much of this planning. So I'm going back to my advisory hat days, which I don't do anymore, but I know it was a big thing. It was definitely a pro, but it's like, well, when this goes away, XYZ, it's like, well, is it going to go away? And I'm not asking you for the crystal ball because I know you don't know, but can you just talk a little about that? And has that come up in conversations as you think? Because my understanding is the sunset is next year, I think 2025. Am I
Correct.
right?
End of
Maybe I'm wrong.
2025 headed
Okay.
into Jan 1 of 2026. You're right. It was going to be the reset, the reverting back to pre-2018, and all the goods and the bads that came with that. So I think now, knowing that at its most basic form, at likely an extension, if not in a complete enhancement to that Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. You got to work with what's in front of you, but I think specific sections in there, everyone should be talking about, should be thinking on. There was one provision called the Qualified Business Income Deduction, QBI for short. It's been a tremendous deductions for a lot of clinics over the past handful of years. As essentially a 20% deduction on profit. Now it's limited and there's phase outs, and it's, maybe your clinic had exceeded that threshold, so you were never eligible for that deduction. But that's been just a massive tax savings for a lot of folks. And how we plan and strategize for it is getting people back within that threshold so they aren't phased out of that qualified business income deduction. And secondly, I'm interested to see how state taxes play out. There was an introduction of something called the pass-through entity tax, which shifted everyone everyone's thought on how they paid taxes to their states. Does that survive? Does that go away? Are we back to the old way of paying state taxes? Those are the two big buckets. I'd even toss in bonus depreciation in there as well, how we take deductions for equipment that we purchase. That's on our radar. That should impact the majority of clinics out there.
Mm-hmm. And I'm smirking a little bit for those that aren't watching, thinking about when Trump took office the first time, saying that the tax laws were going to be able to be put on a postcard. It's going to be very simple. And I always chuckled because my mother-in-law is a CPA, and she always was like, "Oh, it's just there's no way that'll ever happen." And then guess what? Never happened. It's way more complex, and there's new laws, and it's like I know just listening to her, so much CE because of like the impact when these things come out. Because it's like you could talk to your CPA and have like really good information that now is like null and void, a year later or less. And so it is important to have someone that's like up to date on that. And I think the education and information side of it is huge. So I'm sure you guys will have lots to inform your clients and potential veterinary clients in the future as those things become clearer and clearer.
It's called job security, right?
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, it's similar to thinking about from a vet med perspective. I always tell them like it's a great industry to be in because of the fact that it's hard to get through and get there, and you have to be a veterinarian in a lot of states to own. And sure, corporates get around it and all that other stuff, but like it is a really unique opportunity as a business owner. It's not like anyone can open up that style of business. And the same way with the world of tax advice. And my understanding is, it's a very old industry. So I give credit to you and your team, right? I think you definitely bring down that age by a factor of a lot. Like forward thinking, younger, embracing technology. It's like that doesn't sound like a CPA firm that anyone has talked to. So
I hear you.
There's a ton of opportunity. I think just from your perspective with Granite Peak, but opportunities for veterinary practice owners. And I do think it's going to be a pro business environment, which is really great for the backbone of America, which is small business. And I think veterinarians are that. And I guess as we think, obviously there'll be tax changes, but as you're having conversations just from the business side of things with your team, how are you talking with owners, like thinking through like what they can implement or improve upon in 2025? Because I know you have some like business coaching and like have some really cool things that you all are doing.
Yeah, we've added some critical key pieces to our team to help promote and build up the clinics that we work with. And the consulting advisory is always intertwined with the tax and tax planning. I don't think you can have one without the other. And that's why it was so critical to find and identify those pieces that we have. And we attack those on a quarterly conversation with all of our clinics. What's the concerns? What's the thoughts and the questions? It's always been recently now, you hear the lack of revenue growth. You're not growing at the pace you were in those COVID bubble years. People cost and leveraging team and maximizing team is critical. And retention of that team is essential as well, where if we want to keep our people cost in line with what industry standards we should be, that can't be a revolving door. So how you train and retain is critical. And just managing cost of goods sold. I always tell us, and we only focus really on 5 items within your income statement. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of benefits and goods, but we're looking at revenue, cost of goods sold, people cost, rent, lease, and then the EBITDA margin. If you can have a handle of those 5, advertising is going to fluctuate, utilities is going to fluctuate. None of those smaller items should necessarily move the needle. And so that's kind of our core 5 that we really drive and build on.
I love that. That might be a title of a podcast episode when this comes out, the core 5, and I'll make my notes and come back to that. But I like it. I wanted to, let's position you as a veterinarian that's looking for a CPA, because I think again, as we sit here, the tail end of 2024, and as people evaluate, go through things, and maybe have a little bit more downtime, you're tasked with interviewing a handful of firms. What would be good questions? And this is one that I always would like from a financial advisory perspective, where I'd be like, these are the questions I would encourage you to ask that I think you can get some actual information back, because you don't know what you don't know, right? And so I think tax is intimidating to everyone that's not a CPA, candidly, right? It's a world that is convoluted. Talk about job security, like it's hard to understand and it's shifting. And so you don't know what you don't know. What questions, favorite question, couple questions you would ask to help get to the heart of, how do I know that this is the right fit for me? And how do you review that if you're a veterinarian looking at, a CPA?
From the most basic, I think you always need to start with questions revolved around expectations. What should my expectation be of the relationship? How frequently are we communicating? To what level are we communicating? And if you're getting a comment, we're going to talk during tax time, and then if you have questions along the way, it's very unlikely you're going to get the proactive advice that you truly need and deserve. And then I think the other opportunity you have when looking for CPA services, have that CPA review a prior year filing, whether you're, a couple years in and you have some history, or you're looking to, buy a practice and you want them to review those returns and give you some thoughts. See how they can deliver that message to you. Are they citing tax code and your eyes glossing over, or can they kind of simplify it, dumb it down, and just real talk back and forth and give you the nuts and bolts that you truly need to know the numbers and the reasons why, why did you pay this tax? Why did you have this much refund? What brackets were you in? So if you get, simplicity is key, not getting too deep into tax code. So communication, all of that. I think those two big items for us specifically are things we always like to talk about kind of on those very first conversations.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the sign of really knowing a topic, and I think this is even veterinarians are guilty of this too, of like using all of that medical terminology. And if you or I are, your eyes are gonna glaze over for the average pet owner. It's the same thing if you come into the world of tax and even we'll include like audit, even though that's slightly outside of the scope of this conversation. But yeah, using a bunch of code, like that's not helpful to the person that's trying to understand, like, is this a good thing or a bad thing?
It's like, yeah,
And so
yeah.
if you can take a topic and simplify it, it actually does end up making that person, um, they probably are much more knowledgeable to do that versus trying to recite this big technical stuff to be like, hey, look, I know this stuff. It's like, well, if you really know it, make it an easy, simple analogy, right? So
Bring
I
it
think that,
down to
yeah.
elementary level. I think that's extremely critical to get that type of communication going.
And then you can go into the technical piece, but it's not that you have to like prove that you know it. And I think that's I've been guilty of that in the past. Like, especially if you're younger, right? You're gonna say like, I know stuff, and I want them to know I
Yep,
know
yep.
stuff. So I'm gonna use this fancy word. Yeah, I paid a lot of money for these fancy words. I want to make sure they understand them. It's like, no, 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 no. Like, just have a conversation like you're talking to your buddy, over a cup of coffee or a drink or a meal. And like, how would you explain it then? And then if they have further questions that require nuance, add the nuance. Like, don't skip over it. Don't shortchange them there. But yeah, a lot of times that's people don't need all the extra details there. Um, One question I always like to ask, and I think is interesting, is this idea of like non-consensus views. A lot of times, like within an industry, there's going to be like, hey, these are industry standards. These are the way that you should look at it. And then as you practice, as you are out in the quote unquote real world and seeing examples, you might say, you know what, this is kind of the way I think it actually works. Is there anything from the typical CPA that you would say, yeah, I kind of have a non-consensus view on that, or our firm takes a non-consensus view on a specific topic based on what our industry typically does? Anything you can think of or a thought that you have there?
I'd say if we focus on the clinic first, and then maybe bring it just back to specifically the CPA industry. Um, Actually, let's start there. I think the consensus view is how do you invoice a client? How do you bill? And a lot of it is kind of that the historical model, billable hour. You pick up the phone, the client's on the clock type of feel, and I think truthfully that's still the norm. And all your staff are login time every single day. They have to fill up their stat sheet with 8 billable hours, right? So I think that's still industry consensus. For us, not our norm. No billable hour model. It's an all-inclusive kind of monthly fee because we want communication. And I don't think you can foster good communication if the client on the other end is always concerned is, hey, is this billable or not billable? So
Yeah.
I think
A
breaking
quick
away that, and
question.
then, yeah,
I got a quick question.
a good question. And then from a staff perspective, I mean, for them to just be focused on the job, if it takes an hour, if it takes 10 hours, ultimately, it only matters if the client's satisfied and the client get the best result and best product. And I think you lose that in our industry with the pressures and constraints of it has to be done within a 2-hour time because that's all the time that the client's going to be paying for.
Yeah. Was there anything from a veterinary side? I think you kind of talked about too, or is that
I think the vet side
together?
is just there's a lot of KPIs and benchmarking and industry norms and targets. And while I agree with all of them, um, in that consensus, I think you also just need to look at the clinic on an individual level and where they are. So like a lot of times, like people cost, the clinics are tired of getting beaten up with higher people cost in relation to industry. That could be right. But if you also don't lose clients, if you have a passionate team that are truly invested in, I'd rather sacrifice a few points in my income statements there, make it up in other spots. And sometimes I just think the industry focuses too much on being within those relevant ranges. And I trust me, I get the importance of them and they're
Mhm.
critical, but I think there's others ways to find success within your income statement. If we're not hitting the targets on all of our key performance indicators.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's good. And I had a conversation with a veterinarian that I know that he's looking to buy the rest of a portion of a clinic that he already owns. And yeah, we talked about it, it's like people cost is a little higher, but the thing is they've had issues with retention. They have a really good team right now. I was like, dude, like that's great. There's other ways like you can increase, sales, revenue, top line, you can cut costs and like there might not be enough that you can cut costs. So like let's focus on the other things that are more revenue generating. Maybe that's the way you solve that and move the needle there. So yeah,
100%.
agreed. You can make it really complex or you can really boil it down and be like, do you sell more stuff or do you cut costs? Like that's it. That's business, baby. Like there's other things that are important, but that's going to be a big part. And there's the old adage that sales solves a lot of issues, but that's true. And it's not again, selling is not a dirty word in veterinary medicine either. Like just providing a really good service and taking care of the folks around you, I think that's super important.
Critical, critical.
So again, you run a small business that's growing, which is great. And I don't know, like it's not sometimes even veterinary medicine, it's like, oh, it's a small business. Sometimes they're not small businesses the same way, like your business is getting bigger. So, just like a veterinary owner though, it is privately owned and you've probably learned a lot of your management style as you came in and, as an employee, you bought in, you're the owner now. What advice or guidance do you try to instill on, your clients just from what you've learned from dealing with your own team and managing expectations and hiring and firing and like just creating a culture that fits? Because I think it is similar in a way, just like we talked about, right? You have expenses and you have, revenue and like how you generate a successful business. What have you learned about yourself or your management style just going through that?
I'm learning daily. And what I think I learned, I'm relearning or learning differently the next day. So that's what's so exciting. And I think what just is so amazing about being a business owner, right? Because when I started here as an owner, it was 4 people and you knew every personality, the good and the bad. It was all within one office space. And now as we cross 15, we got employees in 8 different states. So some of us kind of a hybrid model, some of us fully remote. Just the basics that's preached. It's, mission, vision, values, but truly the values. Are you hiring and retaining people and growing people that all adopt and accept core values, that they're willing to be fired tomorrow if they're not living up to those values, then that value system. The other thing that I think has served me really, really well is giving trust day one, and giving opportunity for growth, not just, to be in the back end doing the tasks. No, but to see the entire project through, to take ownership in what was delegated to that individual. To me, that's been truthfully where I've seen the biggest growth over the past couple of years within my employee base, is just the buy-in that I see from them when they feel like, no, I'm not just pushing paper. I'm not just, entering stuff into a return or planning. I'm the one delivering the message to the client and I have full control over that. So to me, that's been by far, the biggest reasons for team success.
Cool. Is there anything that you've course, book, podcast that you consume that helped frame some of the ways you do things? Anything that's like noteworthy that you would share?
Well, like learning, it's daily, right? So I'm a big. I rather skip the music. I'm big on consuming as much as possible in podcast, audible form. But also, for me, I found 3 individuals, which I call as like my advisory board, that are all successful in their own right, accomplished a lot outside of different industries, and we meet quarterly. I pull and lean on them in every direction, and they also offer a fresh perspective, because sometimes you get so deep into something, you just create blinders. So you can pitch an idea to someone in real time and just get good feedback. So it was a mixture of both. It was the reading and learning and listening, but also surrounding myself with individuals with experience.
I love that. And I think the advisory board thing is much more of a thing that's done outside of vet med, but I think more veterinary owners should do it. It's really smart. I love that idea and would encourage people to think about that. Like, who are people that you know in your social circles, at church, at wherever, that are business owners that are just doing stuff and doing it well, that might have like a very easy question to you about a problem. Like, well, why don't you do it this way? And you're like, never thought about that, right? Because you are so deep into, well, this is how, this veterinary clinic runs. Like, this is the way. I've
I
done it
think
for.
that's what makes it so good is that you try to find those advisors that know nothing about your industry, because there's no preconceived ideas or thoughts. So if you don't have one, you don't want someone else in vet med that's been successful and bring them in, because they're going to push what they've done, and that might not work for you. Like, guys, the three gentlemen I work with know nothing about tax, know nothing about CPA firms. They just know business and they know people. And I think if you know business and people, that's what you want to be surrounded with.
And I think a comment there that you just made that would be underrated is someone else that's been very successful in vet med can come and say, well, this is the way you should do it. Not always, right? Like, it is going to sometimes be different. There are perspectives and things that they've done that can save you a lot of heartache, but it can also be sometimes you do something and maybe it worked for you in that one specific moment, but it would blow up and be, catastrophic in other environments, because what sometimes works culturally in one area is not going to work with your team culturally in another area. And like, you have to understand your people. If you tried to do something, that worked for Isaiah in Indiana and it wouldn't work for Isaiah in some other state or some other, depending on how my team's structured. And so I think that's actually really, really wise and something that people should think about and reflect on at times.
Absolutely.
Take the idea, filter it through, your own experiences, but also your own business, and then say, okay, does it make sense to do that?
That's what you said. Exactly.
What haven't I asked about when it comes to like, business, tax, management style stuff, just in general, that's on Jharid's mind that you think is important to share? And this, we got lots of time, man. So let's get the wisdom out.
Now the mind is full. It really depends, right? But I think focused on tax, repeating kind of what we talked about a few moments back. It's just how exciting the tax world's going to look. Any change, right? It's the great reset. You can have a seasoned CPA that with tax reform has to start back at the quote beginning. So I think just in making sure, staying up to date and having a pulse on where that direction is heading, so it avoids surprises. As for business management, I mean, that's something you figure out every day. You got to take the goods and the bads, goods with the bads. But, team and building the right team. I love the quote. And I'm actually just coming back from a firm retreat where we flew down to West Palm, a good 3 days to kind of disconnect from the laptop and focus on us and what we're trying to create. One of the quotes that was shared is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, to go together. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, and how far you want to go. You need to be surrounded by the right team to do that.
Yeah. Anything that you've tweaked or changed from a hiring practice? Just going back to, I know sometimes team within vet med is extremely hard. Any thoughts, suggestions when people think about hiring? Because I think that's so tricky. As someone that has felt like have a good read on people, I've been very clear, right? I had a business partner that didn't work out. I made a very bad read, right? Like on one of those really critical decisions, and plenty of people make bad reads. Usually I'm pretty good, but it makes me second guess some of that now a little bit more, where I'm like, I want to really be sure as I look at that. But I haven't had to hire people. Like, I'm not in that position right now. But what have you learned, or what have you changed, or what have you adjusted?
I mean, that's been interesting, right? Because a lot of industries have a shortage, right? The CPA industry, anything you read in industry, it's the lack of college graduates graduating, pursuing the masters, pursuing the CPA exam. Obviously, in vet med, you got the DVM shortage. What does that force a business owner to do? Reach. I think as you're hiring, you have a standard, you have core values, you have a gut feel, and you're willing. And I'm unfortunately was a victim of that. You're willing to bend a little bit because you have someone that kind of fits, kind of doesn't. You know the flaws that you're stepping into, and had you been flushed with opportunities, that candidate wouldn't have been a candidate. So you make a reach, and what happens? It always becomes an issue, and it becomes an issue pretty quickly. So I think the big negative I've had in a growth phase is trying to fill the team quickly, bending the standards that I've created that have been successful standards to identify and just bring in someone, and then ultimately that individual just didn't work out. So that on hiring, that is my clear message is if you can just communicate the team and show the team, hey, we're trying, we are putting in resources. Now it hasn't come to fruition. We haven't identified that individual that's going to be a part of the team. We're also not sitting in the sidelines. We're making connections. We're networking. We're exploring any and all avenues. The team's going to buy in. The team's going to be willing to put their head down and keep sacrificing work, and maybe a little bit more stressed for a shorter period of time, versus finding them, bringing them in, thinking you're giving the team relief, and it ends up being not relief because now they have to kind of clean up the mess, fix what was done, and then you're back to square one again.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's really good advice again. To not bend the standard. That's and it is a very real temptation, and it seems like it's an easy thing to say, like, well, yeah, of course, Jharid, I'm not going to hire bad people. Duh, no one does that.
No,
Like, well, when people are like, hey, when are you going to hire that person? Hey, when are you going to hire that person? You're like, well, this one's like, like a fit kind of most of the stuff. I think they're all right, but maybe this little red flag is like maybe more yellow, like orange. We're cool. Like we'll let it go. And you're like, oh shit, that was the wrong decision. And again, you will know pretty quickly. And you can either rip the Band-Aid off and course correct, or try to right the ship. And I can tell you from a situation, again, my personal situation, it's not the right fit, and you can try to fix it, but at the end of the day, it's still going to be the wrong thing, and you gotta address it at some point, and it's going to be the same decision now or 18 months later or 24 months later.
And I think that's where we personally, I course corrected is, hey, yeah, it was a miss. It was a miss, and unfortunately, it didn't align, didn't work out. You just got to pull and rip that Band-Aid off quickly, because the longer, it's not going to fix itself. The issue just doesn't go away. The red flag that you knew was red, but you turned it yellow in your head, it's going to pop up. You just got to identify, I goofed. It wasn't the right hire. We're back to the drawing board. But if you do that quickly, it kind of limits the negative impact.
Yeah. And admitting you make mistakes, even if you are the person that is in charge, that is a normal thing. You're not going to be perfect. And to try to act like you don't make mistakes or blame it on someone else, the extreme ownership piece of running a business is important, because people are going to respect you if you're willing to say, yeah, I tried, I messed up, I'm going to get better, and I own that, my bad, and away we go. And I think anyone that's played team sports gets that, right?
Sports.
There's going to be mistakes, there's going to be things that happen, and you just move on. So
very rarely though, do you make a mistake that is actually, bring you to your knees. It's going to crush you. I mean, most times these are mistakes. They're basic, curable, correctable mistakes. So nothing.
Yeah. It is rare. Like, there can be mistakes that could completely destroy a business, but hopefully you haven't put yourself in that situation. But there are people that have made those. I'm fortunate I haven't, but yeah, you've survived 100% of the worst days of your life. And that's always a positive approach to things when things kind of suck and you're getting through something.
Well said.
But I always let people ask me a question. I know we're kind of going back and forth on this hiring piece and managing, but any question you want to lob back my way to discuss kind of as we round things out and close up?
Yeah, I think I had a couple, but
Sure.
the way you handle one of them, and you were open to share, kind of, and like myself, who've been through partnerships before, and I think a lot of our practice owners decide on, hey, do I make this doctor a partner, right? And buy into the company. What do you think has been kind of in a partnership relationship, items or one or two things that have made that partnership tremendous, and then maybe one or two things that that could cause some friction in a partnership and kind of lead to that business divorce?
Sure. I think things that make it well is, like, if you're aligned on where you're going, on what is kind of the key things that are driving the business forward, is obviously really, really important. I've always stressed for anyone that's going to go into a partnership to read the partnership charter by David Gage. I think I've said this like a million times. I will also admit that, read it with my partner that we had our business divorce. So it's not perfect. It's not like it's not a silver bullet. You're not going to go through everything, but I think it can help. And the one thing that I do give credit for our situation was we did a good job up front of setting up, if this doesn't work. And it wasn't like, call it the prenup, right? Well, again, we'll
Sure.
make these things more simple, but it was like, hey, we think this is going to work, but if it doesn't, how do we unwind this, and how do we make it so it can be something where it doesn't destroy the business. And that was something that was very intentional from the front end. And even my wife joked the other day, she's like, you know what? I really thought you guys were crazy for the amount of conversation about these little things, but I think that's really smart. And I was like, I appreciate that. You at least think I'm smart. That's good. Um, but I think from my situation, we started out with alignment. And then over time, it was this idea of we need to do more and we need to like do 10 things versus being very focused on what did we set out to do and like go just kick butt in that one area and then grow. Don't just try to grow to see this vanity metric on the top line of like, oh, our revenue's so high. Well, that's great. If you just are burning cash on the back end, that doesn't make any sense. And you can have those conversations, but if someone always has the right answer and has, the it has to be this way. And it's like, okay, we're gonna have a team discussion, but it's always going to be this person's like response. Like that is something you have to address sooner rather than later. And I would say another thing, just as you talk with an individual, and some people could even point this back on me and be self-critical, is like, if you talk about a situation and it's always someone else's fault, it's never their own, that's something that's out there. And I'd be the first one to say, like, I allowed some things where it's a slippery slope and you just say, oh yeah, it's fine. Oh yeah, that's fine. And then like, I've normalized that. And then all of a sudden you get to a point, you're like, this isn't where I wanted to be. That's on me. You should have nipped it early and tried to be a little bit more forceful then. But if someone blames multiple people other times, like they've always worked at clinics where, the medical director or the owner was always an ass or a dick, or they never gave them the opportunities and it always was someone else's fault. To me, that's a really big red flag. And they can talk about frustrations. And there are situations where people treat, people horrible, whether it's in vet med or outside of vet med. And so that is normal. But if it is like a repeated pattern of it's always someone else holding them back, like this, they would have been successful if,
Sure.
you should probably be like, I don't know, good luck, and just let them go on their own way. They shouldn't become a business partner of yours from that standpoint. I think what can make it really good, and especially within vet med, is this idea of, I don't want to always be on. And so if you can find people that are truly good at their craft, I think you need to have also an understanding of like world values that you agree on. And it seems weird. And it's not like you need to say like, who'd you vote for or this or that, like, and get into that level. But I think having a mutual respect of these are core things that we all agree are really, really important. Like, for at the end of the day, regardless, like these are the things that we hold dear. And if you have alignment there, that's a great start. And then understanding from there, like, what is the end goal? Like, what are we building towards? If someone wants to build something that is, multi-location and you're going to grow and you're going to do all this stuff, and the other person's like, I don't really want that. Like, they might be a really cool person to work with, but it's always going to be this stretch and pull that's not going to give you what you want. And so there's nothing wrong with growing really big, and there's nothing wrong with saying, we're really efficient at one location. But I think having that is important from a business partnership perspective of seeing that. I'm trying to think of I think sometimes people that you've been around longer, that you've seen go through things that you've never had like the business discussion, is helpful because you've seen like the ups and downs in their own career. And folks know, like, I'd launched a kind of this veterinary business pinpoint, right? And I've known Bobby, who is my kind of co-partner in that, since 2016. Like, I've had so many conversations about life and things, and like, I've known him forever, and we never talked about doing anything together until more recently. And so that's helpful, candidly, on my end. So that's my my word vomit response on I think a simple question.
I think you nailed it. I think you hit a lot on the head. And I just think of tying it back to where I'm at, and I'm fortunate where I have an individual on my team that she's been with me. She's 8 plus years, intern to associate to manager, and now she's going to be buying into equity here in January. And
Kudos to her. That's awesome.
No, yeah, she's incredible. Key piece to our continued growth and success. But you've seen all the ebbs and flows that she's been a part of. I mean, there's no questions on who she is as a person. I have complete knowledge of that. And I think we got together last week, and I said, hey, what is this? What does our company sale look like? Right now, both of our runways are long. Like, there's no sale on any future. But I think just having an understanding of, right, what does the runway look like? What is her plan? What is my plan? Are we in alignment with like this big picture thought? So all those quote silly or funny discussions, I think they're critical. They're critical to flush out early. Well said on your end, and absolutely echo a lot of that.
Yeah. And just to bring it back to a vet med kind of perspective there too is, I think there will still be exits to corporate, and there's certain people that to them, they're fine with it. And I don't think you should demonize anyone that wants to sell to corporate. Like that's never been me. I like private practice. I think the de novo startup is great and there's like lots of opportunity there. But if one partner is like dead set that corporate is evil and one's like, yeah, you know what? If they write me a big check, like I'm fine. And you understand that difference, that will cause tension because let's say the world looks similar to it does today. I don't know if it does. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it changes and things levelize. Where it is more competitive for private practice to buy. I candidly don't think it's going to change that much. I think it kind of stay the way it is. Like I'm not going to paint this rosier scenario in the future than there maybe is. Are you okay walking away from maybe a 7-figure number difference? And if both partners are, that's great. And that again, money is not everything. And if it's enough, that's great enough. But if one wants the max dollar and one wants not to sell to a certain entity, that stress, and I will tell you, especially when money is involved in any kind of negotiation with numbers that are, they don't have to be crazy big, but still big. Yeah, people change. And what people have seen it with family, I'll tell you business partnerships, especially if you're going through a struggle like it. Yeah. And more than once I've seen it, even since I've left what I was doing, like veterinary partners that I had spent time together in their clinic together that were the best of friends, going through their own issues. And it's wild what can change based on not necessarily that situation, but just people that can be very close and work for, a decade together. It can dissolve. It can dissolve really quickly. And you look back and like, how did that happen?
Money. I mean, but you're also not talking about, 10 grand, 20 grand. You're talking, five times value difference on a private, we potentially millions of dollars here. So yeah, I think that's early on. You're just starting out in a startup. No one's thinking about what that sale looks like, but you have to flush it out because you just never know. You never know when you're going to be, in that situation.
And it's okay to change your mind, but you need to communicate that with your partner if there are massive changes like, hey, this now, my mind shifted on it because it is fine to change your mind and you're going to be a different person 5-10 years from now. That's cool. But you need to at least have those ongoing communications so that's not a surprise. Cause I think that's the big thing. It's the surprise factor of like, oh, I never thought, Isaiah, you would say something like that. And then it's like, what else don't I know? I don't even know who you are. And that's where it can get dicey from that standpoint.
I very much agree.
All right. So folks that are interested in connecting with you and the team that are like, hey, I like where I'm at, or I'm not happy where I'm at, but I want to, understand a little bit more about Granite Peak. Where would you send them? What kind of resources, stuff that, they could contact and chat with you on?
Yeah. Website's always easy, granitepeakcpa.com. We have a calendar link in there. You get time on my calendar. And then we have a YouTube page where we host monthly webinars, content of just industry experts and advisors talking a range of topics. We do some quick hitters on just some tax updates and things that should be top of mind for the practice owner from a tax planning setting. But yeah, email, call is always easier. You can access that through the website directly.
Cool. And I'll put it in all the show notes so it's easy to get there. And again, I think this idea of personal brand, content creation that's kind of uniquely your own is going to be huge in vet med, also in the CPA world. So I give you credit for that because it's something that's easy to gloss over and just say, no, it's too much work. We're already busy enough. We need to hire that person. Like we don't have time. Doing that, it pays dividends literally and figuratively from that standpoint. So great. So glad we got to do this. Really appreciate the work that you all, the team are doing. And yeah, we'll chat soon. Best of luck. And we'll see what tax reform comes. You guys will be busy.
Likewise, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Take care, Joe. All right. So there are a lot of great job postings that I want to get to. And so we're going to start off with Bayside Hospital for Animals. Great work-life balance in beautiful Fort Walton Beach, Florida. No weekends, Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. No on-call or emergencies. It's an appointment only here. Currently a 2.5 doctor practice. New owner in 2021. Bringing some fresh life into the hospital. The new owner had been there for 6 years prior working, so definitely understands the team, the processes, and the community. Lots of investment in people and new equipment. ProSal is the pay structure. Far too many benefits for me to list. Email BaysideVet251@Yahoo or call 850-864-1857. Join a thriving, growing Small animal practice in Vermont on the Quebec border, full-time ideal, part-time is considered. The idea is to start with yes with the team, patients, and clients in outdoorsman or outdoor woman's paradise while being able to practice high-quality medicine. Compensation is write your own structure within production capabilities. Literally, it is the owner wants to find the right person and is happy to negotiate, chat through, and find the right fit. If you want autonomy and a boss that enjoys teaching, reach out to Newport Veterinary Hospital. You can email newportveterinaryhospital@gmail.com. North Central Indiana, looking for an oasis in the chaos. Who isn't, right? Come join the amazing team at Fulton County Veterinary Clinic. They strive to foster a fun, fast-paced work environment while providing quality patient care. They utilize the support staff efficiently so that the doctor is available to practice medicine and do what you're trained to do in less time and paperwork, which is great. Lots of investment in new equipment and technology to support you, full-time or part-time available. Small animal and exotics are both seen there, so no ER, no on-call, no weekends, competitive salary with sign-on bonus offered, and far too many benefits to list. Go to Fulton County Veterinary Clinic. So type that in and you'll find the job posting there. Last but not least, join Watertown Animal Hospital. Personable small animal veterinarian wanted for well-established current 5-doctor mixed animal practice in northern New York, which is an outdoors person's paradise. Again, 2 of those. So if you like the outdoors, you can look at Vermont or New York. They have plenty of support staff with 6 CSRs, 6 licensed technicians, 4 animal caretakers, 2 technical assistants, a hospital assistant, a practice manager, and a bookkeeper. Focuses on mentorship and investment on the people and the technology. That's been a strategic initiative by the leadership team. No on-call, 24-hour ER less than an hour away. Salary based on experience, but no less than $95,000. Can be straight salary, pro sal considered. Want to discuss that with the right person. Tons of benefits. Again, too much to list. Please reach out to watertownpetcare.com for that option as well. So again, if you find a role or a job or talk to anyone and it helps you in any way, I would love to hear that feedback. So please reach out. Let me know what you're able to do. And I will continue to post these. So if you are an owner, reach out to me, let me know. And we'll go from there. And until I hit a capacity of I can't keep recording these, I want to let people know who are high quality owners around the country looking for great help. So with that, we'll talk soon. Thanks for listening to today's show. The comments made on today's show should not be taken as investment, tax, or legal advice. All comments are for educational purposes only. You should talk to your professional team before implementing anything. If you want or need financial advice, my day job when not podcasting is helping veterinarians grow their net worth. Our team is taking new clients and we are ready to talk to you at any stage of life. Come as you are. I always say bring the mess, right? Like if things are unorganized, that's okay. There's no prerequisites to become a client. Isaiah Douglas is a partner at Vincier Wealth Management. Isaiah is a registered investment advisor, registered with the SEC. The biggest compliment you can give me in the podcast is to share it with a friend. Reviews help the show get found, and Apple Podcast is the platform that is predominantly used for people listening to the show. If you have 3 minutes, love the show, head over to Apple Podcasts, give us an honest rating and review. It helps more people find the show. Also, the new YouTube channel is up, and I'd love to have you subscribe. Vainly, I want 100 subscribers at least. Lots more, obviously, right? But I get a vanity URL if we get to 100. That would be great. It makes it easier to find the YouTube channel as well. For all of today's links, information, head over to the veterinariansuccesspodcast.com. There you can subscribe to your favorite podcasting platform. It'll be a link to that YouTube channel I just talked about. You won't miss any other episodes, whether you list on Spotify, whether you have some other ancillary podcast platform. Please like, subscribe, all that stuff. It certainly does help. I appreciate it. Finally, if you want more information, insights, want your voice to be heard, want to share ideas for content, say, hey, Isaiah, I want you to have this guest. I want you to talk about this topic. Go over to the Facebook group. So you can search for the Veterinarian Success Podcast on Facebook or head over to veterinariansuccesspodcast.com, scroll to the bottom about your host, click on the Facebook icon, and that'll get you in the group. But thank you so much for listening. It means a lot to me to be able to see the podcast grow and continue to impact people. So with that, until next time, we'll chat soon.